Okay, welcome back to another episode of Pewology. It's the show where the people in the pews get to do all the talking. Gentlemen, interesting little discussion I want to have with you guys tonight. Okay, I've noticed that we got a couple back again. George, everybody knows. Been here many times. Jeremiah and Justin back again. Young guys, guys that are considering exploring the idea of ministry, getting more involved in ministry, maybe even local church work ministry, all that kind of stuff. We've been kind of talking about that. Here's what I want to talk about tonight. I have I don't know how I want to approach this, but I have a general fear that when people join, and I don't just mean any church. I mean not just this church. I think it's any church. Honestly, I think it's just church. In fact, I would say this church does better than most. But when you join a church and you join a staff, either at a high level, volunteer level, elder, deacon, one of these high level volunteers that are really, really bringing a lot to the table when it comes to like time and dedication and service and all of these things, or they join the staff, whether that be part-time or full-time staff members that are exploring a life in ministry, things can go bad. There's a little bit of an adage to it where it's like, once you learn how the sausage is made, you might not like the sausage.
Yeah. That's kind of a general thing, though.
I think it is.
But I think, some people might get, some people might go into it thinking, oh, this will be different because it's like faith-based and everything like that. But it's like, I'm sure a lot of the same dynamics apply to anything that you try on that's new,
I mean, you're still dealing with people, and that's never fun when there's a large group of people. It can get rough really quickly.
Yeah. I just think that like the naivety, and I don't mean it in like a childish way, like somehow you're dumb. I just mean like if you haven't been exposed to that and then you are, I think okay, how do I want to say this? I just think that you can join this thing and you can go into it with this like, hey, we're all going to be serving the Lord and it's going to be so purposeful and it's going to be so meaningful. And then you're here on Christmas Eve at 11:30 stacking chairs and you're like, what did I do with my life? This is awful. Like, and nobody sees the value and nobody sees what I'm doing and nobody sees my dedication. And I've seen people get angry. I've seen people feel disrespected. I've seen people, I just see people burn out and I worry. So I almost worry for you guys. Like I'm always like, oh boy, the last thing I want to be is the stop on the road to like, I don't want to go to church anymore. Right. Or like, now that I've seen this, I don't know if I could ever go back. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that I think everything you're saying is extremely valid. And I think you just got to be built different. Hey, for lack of a better way to put it.
You got to be built hard. Ford tough.
Thank you. I'm glad you caught on.
Let's
Ford
go,
tough.
baby.
Come on, brother. Come on. No, seriously, though. I mean, I think you got to really want it. I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, and I could only relate it to the gym for me, right?
Okay.
I've probably been in the gym longer than I've been in the church, right? Or about even, just about now. So, but it's one of those things where, like, you can start going to the gym because you like it, but when you like something, it don't last. Versus if you go even the days you don't like it and you're disciplined, I think discipline is key in all aspects of life, especially when it comes to anything work related, right? Like if you're going to go out and work in any environment, whether it be the church, a company, for yourself, if you have no discipline, it will eventually fade away and simmer out. And when things get tough, it's easy to fold. So I think, discipline is number one. And I think that's what would help.
I agree with that a lot. I mean, obviously, discipline carries through because when you're not in agreement with someone, or maybe you're lacking patience, or you're extra tired, extra irritable, like you still have to get that thing done, you know? Yeah. And when you're not tied, like this isn't your career per se, it's a little bit easier for someone to just be like, you know what? I'm good. You know, I'm just going to wash my hands from this,
walk away,
move on.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of that coin too comes from like, where in those difficult times or frustrating moments, like where does your strength come from?
Okay.
We are all significantly too weak. I'm sure we could all agree to consistently be at our A game when we're serving and contributing. So whenever you are struggling and you're questioning and you're like, you know, even considering opting out, like what is keeping you there, right? And a lot of times, like we say we're there for God. Hopefully that's true most of the time. But also we have to really lock into what is our source of strength. You know, if your strength comes from God, it'll make up for a lot of the weaknesses we have as human beings. And I think that's huge as well, obviously, in addition to the discipline.
Well, you're approaching it, you're kind of approaching it, the questions from like, hey, the work's going to be tough. And I think it will be. I think ministry is a very tough work, right? Because I think it takes a lot emotionally. I think it takes a lot mentally. I think people see that what is typically the tip of the iceberg on like a Sunday morning experience. So they see like the music director, you know, playing the piano on Sunday morning, or they see me preaching a sermon, or they see, you know, the student minister giving an announcement or whatever. And they go, oh, that looks like a cool gig. And they don't see like, oh, basically Mike chose a life where he has to give a term paper every week for the rest of his life, right? He has to give a term paper every Sunday. And if he shows up and it's not prepared, everybody knows it immediately. Like, oh, this guy took a week off. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is he doing, right? On top of that, it's like, well, how many hours does that take, right? And then it's like, oh, and what about all the, like, who set up all this, and who put the tables back out, who cleaned up the storage unit last time, and who picked up after that 4th of July when there was like $1,500 worth of fireworks shot off in the backyard. Who picked those up? I wonder, did the garbage man do that? Oh no, it was the pastor, right? Yeah. Like who does all that stuff, right? Yeah. And so
who unplugged the toilet when everybody was gone?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of like the tip of the iceberg mentality that draws people to ministry, and then when they get in, they're like, oh, and I think that's the thing you're talking about, which is the hard stuff. The other part is, I think. This is the other thing that I think is concerning to me. I've seen this a number of times now. I've seen people come in. We've hired other ministers from other staffs come and join this staff. They've come on staff, had a bad experience here for one reason or another over the years. Remember, I've been doing this for a long time. So over the years, had a bad experience, whether they burned out, we burned them out, whether we did something, they did something, whatever it was, right? And literally, they don't leave here and just go to another church. They leave here and they're like, I'm done with church.
Ford tough.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, let me reiterate, Ford tough.
I've seen that with volunteers.
It's more like a Mitsubishi.
And I think I think one of the things that I wanted to throw at you guys that's interesting is that I think one of the things that is hard to talk about, but I think is a reality, is what happens when you kind of tear through the packaging of the person that you're kind of getting drawn into ministry with, right? So like, oh, here's this pastor and the packaging looks pretty good. But then you get in and it's up close and you realize, oh, he's just as human as I am. He's just as broken as I am. Mm-hmm. He's got an ego. He's got pride. He's got an attitude sometimes. He doesn't always sleep well. His prostate is getting smaller and smaller, obviously. And so like
you mean larger?
Whatever.
if the prostate is getting smaller, that's actually good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's good. But you know what I'm saying? Like, and then all of a sudden, this guy doesn't live up to what I was hoping. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think you would have to start in a place where you think that person was that high up.
What do you mean?
Like you said, if the packaging was good. What if the packaging wasn't good?
He's like, don't even give that much credit. There's no need for that much credit.
What if the packaging is more like newspaper trash? Like they just put together what they could.
He's like, you know what I loved about this packaging?
Yeah.
Held together by
it was a mess.
Yeah.
Check your expectations.
Yeah.
It's Ford tough. No, I think that's a valid concern. I think that you're right about that. But that's one of them things where like, that's the mistake of coming into any church and idolizing like a pastor or even somebody like a teacher of ministry, someone who's trying to draw you into ministry. Like, that's one of the commandments. Do not have any idols, right? So to then do that to a pastor and then be let down by that, and that's what takes you away from the church. That's a perfect example of why that's in the commandments, right? Like if you any man's gonna fall short, but if you're in the church for an actual calling and to actually serve Jesus, Jesus never lets anybody down.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue.
Right.
So it's all about like
it's still a tough job though.
100%.
It's I think the expectation going, yes, it is. But I think that there's a different dynamic to it that is, since it's the church, then yeah, like on the bad days, yeah, God's gonna come through and he's gonna give me the strength. Bro, it's going to be as miserable as any day. You just have the additional stress that it's like, I'm doing this for the church and for God. And then you might start even questioning your motivations because it's like, man, why don't I feel like doing this today? Or why did I get angry when it came down to this, Yeah. So I think I don't know. I think it might be more of a challenge than a job that you could just walk out and say, peace, man, I'm not doing this. And you kind of do it guilt-free.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why people might eventually say, if it goes wrong, I don't even want to have anything to do with the church.
I mean,
when have you quit a job and been like, I don't want to work anymore? You know what I'm saying?
To be fair, that's relatable.
Sure,
but I don't have a choice.
But you have to work.
I refuse to work.
But you have to work.
You're going to go on strike and end up working a different kind of job. Just, you know what I mean?
But you have to work.
Yeah.
Where some people might say, I've been turned off to this whole church experience and I don't even want to go to church anymore. They can continue on with their lives, but
I mean, when we say people are wanting to get away from church as a whole, are we speaking about church as in the physical location with people, or are we talking about leaving the faith?
I don't know. I can't speak for the people that have come and gone from here. I think there are let's do it. Let's talk through that for a second. I think that there are a good number of people, maybe the majority of people that I'm kind of referring to, who once they've left, what they've really left is church staffing, right? They don't ever want to do that again, right? For one reason or another, right? And I think maybe the reason that George is referring to is a legit critique where only in the church do we hold up in the way that we do. I agree that there's other careers with certain moral standards. I'm not saying there's not careers with moral standards. You have to be a certain moral standard to be a teacher. You got to be a certain moral standard to be a cop. All those things. Right. But we do hold up like think about what we're talking about with a pastor. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's a faith leader.
Yeah. And
people look to you at their hardest times. A relative is dying, their children are dying,
right.
Their relationship is falling apart.
Yeah.
They look up to you.
Yeah.
And
I've had people leave for crazy expectations, right? Like crazy expectations. I say this as jokingly all the time. I tell the story all the time. I had a girl walk into the church one day who I knew well and say, I'm leaving the church. And I was like, oh, why? And she said, you didn't come to my grandmother's funeral. And I said, I didn't know your grandmother died.
Oh, you told me about that.
Oh, wow.
So they're unhealthy expectations, right? There's other expectations where it's like, hey, I've been through some pretty crazy things in my life, right? I've had some pretty hard, tragic things from a personal standpoint happen. And then people make judgments about like how I handle those things. Do you know what I'm saying? So then it's like, it's not really a moral issue. It's more of like a gray issue of like, well, we think you could have handled that differently. Do you know what I'm saying? Or that done, or the outcomes could have been different.
I hear what you're saying. 100%.
And they feel like they have a right to
tell me,
to tell you, to critique.
Or to leave over.
Where they wouldn't do that to.
No, like you're not doing that to your like,
your boss at work or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a combination of like false expectations as well as like entitlement, which you can kind of summarize entitlement to an extent as well, to kind of like expectations and ego almost, right? Like you maybe in your experiences before you arrived here were under the impression that the pastor was not just another human being. You know what I mean? There are many places where they're like, oh my gosh, I can't name this child until I confirm with my pastor that this name is legitimate.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I
And
know
it's
people
like-
that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not this
It's
kind
like,
of church.
okay,
Yeah.
perhaps we went wrong somewhere, you know?
Perhaps.
so there has to be, you have to like relegate and understand, okay, this is a human being. Now they have
Yeah.
a calling,
yeah,
and there is a
Responsibility.
important part of
Yeah.
what they do amongst the community and
Yeah.
other people's lives and guidance, and you should lean into the resource of having a good pastor in your
Yeah.
life. But your pastor is also just not God.
Yeah.
And he's certainly not any higher than you are as
Yeah.
an individual, whether you're serving or you're just sitting in the back row.
yeah,
So like you have to have expectations that are realistic of a human being, not of a pastor, because a pastor is just a
like
human
a
being.
character. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good comment. Like, is the expectation of a human being, or is it the character of a pastor,
Right.
that you just made up in your head of
100%.
what?
And there's a million definitions for that at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair. Yeah, because I've watched. I always have a lot of like. I'm fascinated with pastors who get to like mid-career and are very successful and have blow-ups. Do you know what I'm saying?
Good for them.
We've had a lot this year. Who,
Bad blow-ups.
yeah, like all of a sudden, some of the popular ones in the past couple of years has been like the guy from Hillsong, New York, who was
yeah.
that was a crazy story. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you saw that. And then Tony Evans was a popular one this year. Robert Morris has been one that's been a crazy story. All these different big name. I'm talking like, these churches
Yeah.
are huge. And then they're in the middle of their career. They're having what is seemingly a very successful outward appearance. Yet there's some real stuff going on at a human level that's really broken. And I'm always, in those situations, I'm always like, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be repercussions, consequences, disciplines, redirection, whatever it is. I'm just always like, no, I get it. Like, these are just human beings.
Mhm.
These are just human beings, man.
Well,
You know what I
also,
mean?
like, if you're like leading a large congregation, like some of these people are, and there is that expectation of you to be like borderline holier than thou,
Yeah.
maybe it's also difficult. Just as a human being, we all crave to fit into an extent and to
Yeah.
be a part of a community and be welcomed.
Yeah.
It could be difficult to try to break that narrative in other people's eyes as well. Like if your entire congregation feels like you need to be a certain way, they elevate you to a certain standard, it might be a painful experience for you to actually demote yourself in their eyes to just a human being. And it, depending on the person, could just lead them away. Like, oh shoot, no, that's not my pastor. That's not what a pastor is. So like when you're at that point,
Yeah.
maybe you're bottling a lot of stuff that you shouldn't be bottling because you're just worried about how it's received if you expose being a human being.
I think in that case, though, the people that have that mentality, it's all wrong anyway. The gospel didn't reach them if they're looking at you to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say I expect a certain level of decorum and morality from
Yeah.
my pastor.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't expect.
He's not out
from
there
my
just
mailman.
slinging it all over the place.
Right, or whatever, right? But there's a difference between that and then just kind of crowning you as like, oh, if he fails, then like everything I believe rests on his
The
shoulders.
deck of cards comes down. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just wrong.
Yeah.
And I think anybody in this church who you either haven't been here long enough or just not paying attention.
Yeah.
I mean it's
It was funny. We had, this is a true story. I've told this a couple of times too, but we had a like a consultant at one point come in the life of the church at one point and do like a review of like vision and direction and staffing and and he gave me like a report like on me and on the staff and all these kind of things. And mine, the thing that's always stuck out to me was he said, because we had a one-on-one afterwards, he said, my critique for you is that you are way too close to too many people. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, what are you talking about? And why would that be a critique? And he was like, he said this phrase, he said, as the church gets bigger, your circle has to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And I said, why? And he goes, because that small circle is going to be the only ones who will be able to see you as human and see you as really, really flawed. And he goes, if you expose all those flaws to that bigger and bigger circle, he goes, you're going to have a real problem. It's just a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb. And I remember saying to him at the time, nah, I don't buy that. Like, I didn't like it. Over the years, I think he could make a good argument that he was right.
Hey, that's humility right there.
Do you know what I'm saying? I think at the time I thought he was wrong, but over the years I've grown to be like, I don't really know another way to do ministry. I kind of tend to do I feel like I can do a pretty transparent, pretty honest approach to like relationships in life and my, the thing, I don't try to like pretend that I'm something that I'm not typically. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm definitely human, and I definitely have put my best foot forward in certain situations. Absolutely. But I tend to be fairly vulnerable. I would say more than some of the pastors that I've known in my life. But that's a challenge sometimes. That's a real
and still
issue.
Everyone isn't entitled to that level of, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I think all of us kind of have tiers, right? Where it's like, yeah, you know me at this level. You know me at this level. And then, I mean, I think naturally there's a smaller circle that knows you more intimately. That's, well, I don't think you want everyone to have access, I think, to those parts of yourself that it's not about not being genuine. It's just about, we're not there.
Yeah. I think I think that's what he was trying to say too.
Yeah. Well, I was also saying, like, I'm sure he had reasonable cons to which he was stating that. But something I was actually talking to someone about recently was a pro to the approach that you have specifically as it pertains to being more vulnerable and open about that. Is like, obviously, when you're a pastor and you're up front, you're like leading by example.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I find that in churches where they're led by someone who is being vulnerable in that kind of way, it leads to a congregation that is also okay with being vulnerable and often more so being held accountable. And I think that's super important. And one of the best parts about the church is to have people not just to encourage you, but to hold you accountable in your faith.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had somebody say to me recently, because I was kind of going, and we've been kind of going through this whole thing, I've been going through a whole thing with like, some leaders and stuff. We've been kind of just dealing with normal ebb and flow of church life and my life. And from time to time, there's little flare-ups of like, but one of the people pulled me aside. I think they had some access that they knew something was going on. I don't know what they knew or what they didn't know. And they just pulled me aside like on Sunday morning and looked me in the eye and goes, hey, you're human. We know that. And if anybody, what did she say? She said, we expect some mess ups. And I was like, well, hold on. What are we talking about exactly? Because I want to know exactly what mess up you're thinking.
Yeah, what did you hear?
Yeah, exactly.
And what am I agreeing to right now?
I was like, what are you saying? But it was nice the way she said it. She was like, what are we crazy that, you know what I'm saying? That you're not, I was like, oh, that's kind of a refreshing deal.
Hopefully it's just maybe she got more of a vibe, I guess, that maybe the pressure's building. Yeah. It's one of those things that maybe there's not something specific, but she's just like,
hopefully.
Yeah.
So
sounds like that
because we got some people to hunt down.
Yeah.
When it comes to also, like, we were talking about the perspective of like people oftentimes putting someone on a pedestal or things like that. I actually have heard people use this verse in an interesting way. This is James 3:1. It says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly."
Yeah.
And so I've heard that be used in the context of like, well, a pastor's a teacher and, you're going to be judged more harshly. So we should hold you accountable more harshly. And, and it's not to say like yay or nay, but I also wanted to gather your thoughts on kind of the correlation there.
No, I think that's a reality. I've always felt that pressure. I think there's a level of pressure that comes with that that's healthy, which is like, hey, I jokingly say this all the time. This is bad. I can't believe we're saying this, but this is bad. I say all the time, there's only a couple things you can't do as a pastor and keep your job. You can't take money from the offering.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? You can't diddling on in any of the
Yeah.
choir. You can't start any extramarital relationships with anybody from the choir. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Absolutely.
And you can't abuse any of the children.
Yep.
I said, besides those things, you can pretty much get away with some pretty human behavior, right? Like I've known pastors that
Sure.
have had substance abuse issues.
Yeah.
I've known
Yeah.
pastors that have had gambling problems. I've
Yeah.
known pastors that have had like, full blown like anger issues and temper issues
Mhm.
and all these kind of things, right? And kept their job. But those three things, it's like, dude,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
a special line.
Isn't
That's a special
it
line
interesting
there,
though? Because a lot of the things you just named are things that don't impact the optics of a
Yeah.
congregation versus the ones that you said like there's no coming back from it. Those typically are
Yeah.
going to immediately impact the optics in
Yeah.
the worst of ways.
Yeah.
Right. So to an extent, do you think it's sometimes just us
Yeah.
being leisurely with like, well, someone who might be struggling with a gambling addiction might be a little easier to kind of keep that
Yeah.
out of public view than say someone who's fiddling with the choir.
Yeah. 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 I was on staff for a church for a short time where it was covered up that the senior pastor was viewing pornography on a church computer.
Ooh,
Do you know what I'm saying?
at church.
Yeah. And I always thought to myself, at first, that's crazy that, I think it was one of these things where like the eldership kind of circled up, was like, let's send him to rehab. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And I was like, is that enough? Was that enough? Is that, but the higher standard? But for whatever reason in our world, typically, unless you're the Catholic Church, then you can abuse anybody. And typically in Protestant churches, shots fired at the
Just
Catholics.
confess.
In the Protestant church, usually, remember, Protestant churches are run usually at that local level, at that congregational level. The congregation has much more awareness of what's going on with their local pastor, and if that local pastor, let's say, is moving from in multiple sexual relationships in the congregation, right? That can be an ender. You know what I'm saying? It can be like, hey, this is, or if he steals,
Sure.
right? If he embezzles something, right?
And that also directly impacts the people. That's another side of what you were just saying. Like if he's messing with certain people in the church or he's stealing funds from the church, like, those are things that directly impact the people, not just like from a teaching standpoint, but from a like literal standpoint. Like, you know what I mean? You're taking funds for something that they were working towards.
I think it undermines trust. I think when you take away from faithfulness, and when you take away from giving,
Mm-hmm.
and when you take away from innocence, you're undermining trust.
No, yeah, that's good.
At like a deeper level, and that's pretty. So I think there are. Look, I say all that to say, because you asked the question like, hey, teachers are held to a higher standard. I think that specifically, I think if you look at the context, that's pointing to some things, and it's not always just like moral living. I think it is. It includes that. I think we can generally include that. I think it's including like your responsibility to the biblical literacy, your responsibility to teach the truth. I think it's referring to that too. But I just think that we can generally say that it seems pretty logical from the New Testament that those who are going to be serving as leaders, whether they're elders, deacons, pastoral staff, that they're in a position of oversight, and oversight comes with a higher level of responsibility.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? The thing that I've run into along the way is like, what happens when you've got someone who, like say you join the staff, right? And you're looking at either my attitude, my choices, my words, my leadership style, maybe even some of my personal discretionary choices, and you're going, man, that is not the way I would do it. This is not living up to my standard. It's not, and maybe it's not necessarily you can put your finger on like this is a sin, like a specific sin, but this is like, hey, this is not living up to it. And then it's like I've run into this where it's like, hey, you're thinking about it one way, and I get that. And it's an echo chamber, meaning that it's in your mind. You've thought this through this way, but we've never really discussed it. Maybe there's more to the story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like you're thinking about it that way, and me changing your thinking I've been in that situation before where it feels like impossible. I'm like, oh man, there's no change in that.
I mean, sometimes people are just stuck in their ways. To put it in the simplest form, like you can't, like in the same way that I feel like, and I could be taking something out of context, which is great because I have a pastor right here to correct me when I go wrong. But like, you know, the Bible speaks too about like not necessarily like quarreling over the word of God to an extent, right? And like the intention behind it isn't to say like don't talk to people or don't defend the Bible.
Yeah.
It's more so like don't waste your time.
Yeah.
If this person is absolutely shut down to the concept and they're clearly just trying to pin you or just, you know what I mean? Like don't waste your breath. And so in the same way, I feel like you end up with situations like that, especially if it's pertaining to a personal preference, not a sin. Like at that point, like at some line, you're just not allowed to be a control freak is one.
Yeah.
And then the other side of that is like, you can't also just waste your breath trying to convince people of something that they clearly have no intention of being open-minded to.
Yeah. Do you guys, like you two guys that are young and are thinking about possibly exploring ministry, do you worry at all that you'll get exposed to the sausage factory and be like, my gosh?
I mean, in simplest form, no.
No.
I was going to be funny about it and be like, hey, you just got to be willing to shekel. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like, look, now, act right. No,
but do you worry that you worry that you'll see how a church, like the inside of a church, like how the day-to-day operations work, and you're like, oh, this is not.
Bro, I made the statement earlier. It's ugly outside the church. Like I've lived.
That's true.
I have lived enough, and I mean enough.
Working in the private sector that you're like,
just outside of the church to know that there is nothing beautiful out there in any way, shape, or like you couldn't even twist it to make it pretty. You know what I'm saying? Like, whereas I'd rather come in the church where there's some people who are authentic, vulnerable, and are willing to be open about their mistakes. I think there's a lot more value in somebody who can be wrong than someone who's never wrong. So I'd rather get into the sausage factory, see the bad side of it, and then if anything, offer help rather than criticism.
To the people?
I'm saying in general. If we're talking about just being in the church and serving in the church, and he's saying, you know, if you're getting exposed to things that make you not want to eat the sausage.
Because I wanted to press what you just said. Because he was talking about like the mess that can be. And you were saying, well, I want to be in a space where there's like the genuine people and the people. A lot of times when the sausage is getting made, people aren't genuine. And all that stuff that you're 100%. Saying you'd rather be around doesn't exist.
Well, let's be real. How many people do you think outside of the church are genuine? Right. My argument, my strict argument.
He's like, if you're comparing it to the word, it's a little bit better than that, so it can't be that bad.
I say that with some, like, you know what I mean, some grace, because it's just like, dude, like, I'm not saying that out in the world is perfect or absolutely evil,
right? Nor
that the church is absolutely perfect or absolutely evil. But again, it circles back to the whole mindset thing. Like, if you're coming into it and you're thinking, hey, this is going to be like, if you are, I think it's the difference between immaturity and maturity, truthfully.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a mature individual, whether it be inside of a church or outside of a church or in a regular day-to-day, you can you can digest some of that more mature food versus being shook by it. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Like, it's the difference between like a kid who's never dealt with maybe a hard time, like a death in the family or something like that, compared to someone who's lived that out. You know what I'm saying? In multiple different ways, or hardship. Like, if you've never had hardship, and you was raised in the church, and it was all beautiful, all the way up until the point where you became an adult, and you realize, oh, this is what, truthfully, just being an adult is. Not even just being in a church. If you go to any adult situation, whether it be in a work environment as well, it's gonna be just as ugly, if not worse. And so again, I just think that, you gotta. It's all about. I think it has to do a lot with maturity and immaturity. So
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're 27. How old are you?
Good. I'm 22.
22. I'd like to see the Where Are They Now podcast in like 10 years after they get into ministry. Because it sounds really nice right now. They're so positive, right? It's like, no, I think it's just this, and that.
We actually don't do serving anymore.
Well, hey, now I'm going to end up on drugs. I've already did that. There ain't no going back. I'm not leaving.
Covered by the blood.
Truthfully, I think I'm good.
So
I'm good.
With that question that you asked, like, I've had the fortunate and unfortunate opportunity to be a pastor's kid.
Yeah. How was that?
And there were certain things that I'm grateful for as an adult that I didn't appreciate as a kid, for sure.
Okay.
But obviously it's a lot of like optics and a lot of people looking at you. And
was it hard to watch your dad go through things?
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
my dad he was very vulnerable to the church, but he wasn't very vulnerable at home.
Right.
So I didn't really see
Do you think that was
him.
because he was protecting you from it?
I think it's because that's how he is.
Oh, okay.
He
so
was
it's his
raised
nature.
by someone who was like that,
Okay.
and so he
He's a
kind of
little
carried
closed
that
off
over.
in his nature.
Exactly.
Okay.
But you see him at church, and he lights up. Like I feel like he's true to himself
Yeah.
most when it comes to being in the church, serving. And
Yeah.
I watched him do, and he's in Indianapolis doing a conference right now. He never got paid for the first something along the lines of 16 years of ministry.
Yeah.
So he's working full-time construction,
Yeah.
sometimes getting home at 10 o'clock at night, hurting, cut himself, had to go to the hospital, whatever it may be. And then at 4 a.m. the next day, he wakes up and he's working on a sermon. You know what I mean? So like I got to see some stuff where I'm like, Dad, why are you putting yourself through this?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't understand it as a kid because I was like, dude, we're missing out time together. Like I wanted to hang out. We had plans.
Were you
were supposed
jealous
to
of
go
the
bowling.
church? Were you jealous of the church that the time it took away from you?
I think there was a stage when I got to high school and I started realizing how much time being a pastor took. And then the instance was like we had plans to go somewhere one night and there ended up being a call. Someone got sick. He had to go to the hospital and he was praying over them and he was doing stuff like that. And then I was like, well, let's do something for my birthday. And he was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. That sounds good. And when he was going over like the plans for the church, I noticed that he had done like a back to school event on my birthday. I was like, Dad, that's my birthday. Like we're supposed to do something. And it's never and I have there's no fault to him. You know what I mean? He's imperfect as everybody else is.
Right.
But when you're at that stage in life, you don't understand and you don't really provide that grace.
Yeah.
So I would say like I'm grateful and I got to see a lot of situations where people tried at one point, not even people within the church, people from the denomination he's a part of on a local level tried to remove him from his pastoral position at one point.
Yeah.
Like all sorts of stuff where you're like, ew, like this is what it is back here.
Yeah.
And it exists and it's real, but I've also fortunately been able to see the beautiful side of it and the people's lives being impacted and serving the community and missions trips. He's done a ton of stuff in Honduras and Mexico. And like he's done so much of that stuff as well. So it's like the sausage getting made can be quite ugly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, whether it's ugly or beautiful or anywhere in between, like God has a plan for it. And that's where the beauty is.
That's good that you've had that experience and still have a positive attitude about the church and about him. You're able to kind of put it in, like you're able to kind of order your thoughts in such a way to recognize he's only human, the good things, the negative things, and be able to like see it for what it is.
Have to.
No, I don't think you have to. I think a lot of people don't. I think you did good. I think there's a lot of people who look at it only through one lens. And it sounds like somewhere along the way, there was enough love that covered a multitude of sins there probably that kind of got you to a place where you were able to see it for what it was.
For sure.
There had to be. Because there's room for resentment there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like there's any, you know?
No.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful because, and I mean, it'd be interesting. Maybe one day I'll have all my kids on, but it'd be interesting. I'd love to hear what they say because that haunts you as a man, as a dad, and as a pastor. You're constantly trying to balance all of it. I'm constantly trying to, I default to like fun dad, you know what I'm saying? So like my involvement with kids is always like, where are we going? What are we doing? Where are we eating? What are we, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. You know what I'm saying? So, I hope that my kids say the same thing you did. That's beautiful. I like it. Yeah. Yeah. It was good. It was good. So it can work out. You can see how the sausage is made. You can make it.
Sure.
It is possible. You know what I'm saying?
With God, anything is possible, right?
Yeah. I just hope that, I just worry that, you know, I've gotten to the place in my life, I was saying this a little bit Sunday morning, that I've gotten to the place in my life where I actually am in relationships with guys now who I used to do ministry with, and they're not even believers now.
Oh, yeah, I remember you talking
That's
about
gotta
it.
hurt.
And a lot of it's out of like resentment. So, I mean, I'm not talking just like they doubted God. Like a lot of it's resentment.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, I can't believe I wasted my life on this.
How does it
And
make you feel as a pastor when something like that happens, especially when you're closer to someone?
I struggle with those conversations only because I'm not even in the ballpark of feeling that way. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't wake up ever. Now, I've woken up before. And in fact, sometimes recently I've woken up and said to myself, I said this phrase before. I said, I tell people this. Somebody asked me this the other day. I said, well, my job is the best job in the world. I get to do the thing that I've always felt called and wanted to do. I wake up every day with a sense of like real purpose and meaning behind it. I love getting to do what I do. It is one of the hardest things, and it's been one of the most painful things to do what I do. I have been dumped on it in a way that I don't want to hold myself up as a victim by any chance. It's been nothing but a beautiful ride. I wouldn't change it for the world, but I have gone through some things in this life that I wish on no one. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with that said, when I'm in those conversations, I tend to think about, I'll tell you who I think about. I think about getting to spend the last 60 days with a good friend dying of cancer and all those prayers. I get to spend helping a family recover from a great loss, teaching the truth day in and day out, working really hard at helping people get a biblical understanding and perspective from the word that I don't think is just everywhere in our world, even in our Protestant Christian world these days. I think there's a lot lacking. I get to do all this fun stuff where we get to do inventive ways of like talking about the gospel, sharing faith, all that kind of. I love all that.
Yeah.
And so when somebody tells me that, I just look at them like, I don't even know what happened to you, but I know that somewhere along the line there, they got beat up in a way that I have felt in my ministry from time to time and just never recovered.
Yeah.
So you understand it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Do you ever blame yourself at all? Like feel like maybe there was something you could have done?
I do. There are many times when I've thought, well, if I'd have just had this conversation or this tougher conversation or addressed this earlier or gotten on this, or maybe it'd have worked out differently, or maybe they'd be in a different spot or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
And that's
Yeah.
okay. Well, I was gonna say that's not realistic, right? Like,
No, it's
in a
not
sense,
fair, but
and
I had that thought.
And I no, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm saying
Yeah.
that to make a different point that I had my grandmother's the only one who in my life, well, my grandfather and my grandmother were the only two that were like consistently in the church as long as I've known.
Okay.
And so I asked her probably around like a year ago or something like that. And it was something of like a simple question where like I was like, how do you save someone? Like I guess I asked that question. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And just allowed her to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious as to what she would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what it came down to was like she listed like a bunch of reasons. But then I guess I tried to like, because she's been in the church for a long time, but I just kind of tried to remind her, and I could be absolutely wrong here, but I was like, in reality, there's only one person who saves anybody.
No, you're exactly right. You're not wrong. You're exactly right.
And so I just tried
It
to
ain't me or you.
Exactly. So I just tried to remind her in that moment because she had fell out of when they had moved from Georgia to Florida to be close to her family. They felt like they moved away from a church. It was a hard time finding a new one, and they kind of fell out of their routine in a sense. And when you move away from a different state, especially when it's of people that can hold you accountable, of people that know you, you're not going to run into them nowhere. You could change your life. You could go out and choose not to live a certain type of way anymore. So
the two things that I do worry about is one, I worry about staff people because I think it's possible to be working at a church and have no interest in going to church. Meaning that I'm always interested in the people that stop working at a church staff and then just stop going to church, which means really the working at the church was the only reason you were at the church.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I remember even when my kids and my previous spouse and my past, even my best friend would tell you this, is that I've been on sabbatical once in my life where I took like 8 weeks off, and I went to church every Sunday at another church just to be fed. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because I like being with the family of God. I like worshiping. I like all that kind of stuff. I want to connect. I want to be in that routine of connection, right? But I noticed that there's a lot of people that have worked at a church. Once they get off that staff, they don't have any interest in going to the church. They're not going to church anymore.
Free range chickens.
And so that worries me on one end. You know what I'm saying? Is the people that completely stop.
That's a realistic thing to think about. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is that does that happen equally when it's just like for whatever reason they're not working, or is it more prone to happening when it's the result of some sort of fallout?
I think it could be both.
Of whose fault
it could be both. I've seen it be both. Usually, staff people forget. I have to remind staff people all the time of that. Like, people will come, like, join a staff, and then the level of work they're expected to do at the church is pretty high, right? And sometimes the staff will come to me and they'll be like, "Oh, well, you're expecting this and this and this," and I go, "Yeah," and I want you to think about this. Like, Justin just finished working at the plant at 3 a.m, and he's here serving in the ministry. So quit your bitching and get back there. And I'm just like, what are we talking about here? Like, sometimes staff forget that, and they think, "Oh, I'm just here getting paid to do volunteer work," and I'm like, "You're not here getting paid to do volunteer work.
Right.
You're leading the ministry.
Yes.
Like,
You're
you're casting vision.
Yeah.
You're driving the ministry.
Yeah.
Like, they're volunteers. You're like, so they forget that,
and you're just mad you're not getting any glory for it.
Yeah. So they forget that all the time. I have to be like, I can remember when we were. Never mind. I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's just good.
It's almost like they see where it's like, oh, if I'm doing the same thing as the volunteers, it's like, what am I? Like,
if you do the same thing as the volunteers, you're not doing your job.
Yeah. But
there's a problem.
But they almost want the position to be kind of like exalted almost.
Yeah. They want to be like a paid volunteer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of want to say one last thing about what we had already spoke about, but it's like, as far as like the fear of it, I think for me, it's one of those things where like I went into a company where I was in the mindset of I'm going to start here at the bottom, and I did. And I moved up fairly quicker than most. And I worked really hard to do that. And I had a lot of, it's something that really excites me. I said that before, learning and progress and getting better in any way, shape, or form. But that was a company where it's like, as a perfect example, dude, I put in all that effort and I worked really hard. I was one of the, top performing, and it was like graft, you know what I'm saying? And then to come full circle, I just got laid off from that company. You get what I'm saying? So it's like in a way, it's like I say that to say that if I can go out and do something like that, like for me to do that in the church, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest, because it's like I was going to do that for a company that didn't think twice. You know what I'm saying? So like for me to go into a church where there's people here that care about me, and I've witnessed that firsthand, and I really am. I welcome that and want that. And so, as far as that goes, I'm excited about it. If anything, that excites me to think about it. Where there's a home where I can work toward it, and it's not going to abandon me in any way, shape, or form.
I like that. All right. I don't know if that fixed anything. And I don't know if we answered the questions, but we'll have to do a future podcast with these guys after maybe a couple years of
30 years of
ministry and service and stuff, and see if after they see how the sausage is made, they're still on board, I guess.
We'll have Mike on an oxygen tank, but we'll be in here 30 years from now.
Okay, really? Take it down a notch. Take it down a notch, bro.
Whoa.
Take it down a notch. All right, love you, mean it. Peace.
Love you, Mike.
All right.
No, that's just what came to mind to me. Just
what was that?
Just the
He's not gonna